Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And in this episode, we're going to take a look at an article in today's Daily Express written by MP Esther McVey. She, in there, discusses the pronoun game he, she, it, they. Whether we should use them. Is it divisive? Should you be compelled? Should you be free? She makes some good points and some good arguments. I think I agree with virtually everything she says. So I think it's an interesting article, and we'll just go through. It's a bit quick one. It's a very short article, but it's worth I think looking at, especially in the current climate. So yeah, without further ado, straight in. So here's the article. As I say, it's from the Daily Express. And it's written by Esther McVey. So these are her words. I'll put in comments as I go through. And for those who are sort of unaware, Esther McVey is an MP. She's the MP for Tatton, I think, in Cheshire. She's she's bright. She's one of those that doesn't often make mistakes. She actually is, I suppose you'd say, a good MP. She's got very little that she's ever sort of kind of been on the wrong foot with. Which is unusual with MPs because normally they're blithering idiots, but actually she's quite an intelligent woman and hasn't made too many faux pas. So I do actually kind of respect her. I do like her. Um, it's just nice to have someone that's what's the word? Reliable, honest, capable. There's so many MPs that are not capable, but anyway. That's an aside, and that's worth a video on its own. Be a long video looking at the stupidity of MPs, though, wouldn't it? But we'll get straight in. I am not a pronoun. I am a free woman. Hey, the prisoner. Blast Esther McVey. What is this current obsession with gender identity and announcing your pronouns to the world? Why does your name badge need to be she, her, he, him, they, them? Isn't my name sufficient? She says. I thought we'd spent the last 5 decades fighting for colour blindness and getting rid of prejudice, of valuing individualism and for taking people as we find them. Removing labels was surely part of that process. Indeed, you spend all these years fighting to remove labels, labels of colour, of identity, of race, of sexuality. We grew up, those of us old enough, I mean, I certainly grew up in an era where it was on television acceptable and part of mainstream entertainment that you would call a black person by disparaging remarks. Love Thy Neighbour in the 70s was a great example of this. This was a prime time television show comedy. You had a white couple and a black couple living next door to each other. And the white man was a very, very racist man. Jack Smethurst, I think he died recently, I seem to remember. But we had Jack Smethurst, and next door was living was Rudolph Walker. I mean, both these guys are actually, excellent actors. Rudolph has been in many, many things over the years. Very distinguished voice, wonderful voice, Rudolph Walker. But it was Jack Smethurst's character, and I'm in no way impugning Jack Smethurst. He was not a racist. I'm not saying that at all. But his character was racist, and he would call his neighbour never the N word, but a very sort of minor N word that rhymed with Mig Mog. He would call him something that sounded very, very similar to Mambo and things like that. And then the audience would laugh. And it meant that these words became acceptable and were used in the street by everyday folk all the time. We look back at this show now, and it's with horror that was even a thing. It is an awful show. But we've spent 50 years, this was 50 years ago, but we've spent 50 years moving away from those kind of labels. Rightly so. And now they're being imposed again, but not by normal people, not by everyday folk like you and me, but by progressive, lefty, woke folk who want to create labels, and yet labels have been shown to be destructive. And Esther McVey here is arguing that we shouldn't, and I think she's right. But we'll move on to the next part of what she said. So how have we got to a place where people are freer than any generation that has gone before to be who they are, free of other people's labels, only to choose to put labels on ourselves? I'm not choosing that, and I reckon most of you aren't choosing that. It's like I say, it's those very weird people with their little mental illness. Is that not a retrograde step, a new way to find division under the guise of openness? Wearing a pronoun with pride is a new way to foment division and to find a new them and us. And she's right. It's look how virtuous I am. I've got my name and a he him. I'm showing my virtue. I'm showing how great and cool and wonderful I am. No, you're really not. You are putting a label on yourself, but it's not the he him or the she her or the they them that you're putting the label. That's not what that label says. That label is saying mentally ill. Identity politics is divisive. It is a form of outing or putting under pressure those who'd rather not say, a way of putting barriers back up that had been taken down. This isn't liberating, it's a political campaign to open up a new division. It is, because it's not just the division of whether you're a he, him, a she, her, or a they, them. It's the political division of labelling or not labelling. Oh, look at him not labelling. He's obviously a far right hate group. That's what the division is. As I have, and this is Esther speaking, but this is what I agree with her as well. As I have a live and let live attitude, what is it to me if someone wants to put their pronouns at the end of their email or underneath their name on a badge? Feel free. But I have a bit of news for those who believe this is the cutting edge of trend setting. Using pronouns isn't new. Chaucer got in there first in the Canterbury Tales. He was the first to use the singular they, although their use at the time wasn't necessarily to define people outside their gender binary, but they were used. However, with this creeping pronoun pronouncement, a new intolerance is born. If you don't wear your pronouns with pride, you have managed to become defensive and offensive at the same time. Indeed, and these weird people who insist on putting their pronouns on are saying that you're offending them by not putting your pronouns on. Well, I've got news for you. You control what you say, you control what you do, but you have no control over what I say or what I do. I choose to use words. I choose to not use words. I choose to be who I am. I choose to have a view that I have. Life is full of choices. I make those choices for me. You make them for you. I won't impose my values on you, but you can't impose your values on me. You cannot control how I describe myself. You cannot control the words I use. Anyway, moving on. Worse still, she says, some organisations are unacceptably forcing all their staff to display their pronouns on emails and name badges. I will not do that. If my company brought that in, I would refuse to do it. I would say I find it offensive. It offends my dignity. It offends my self-worth. It offends my beliefs in freedom. I find it undemocratic. I find it hateful. And if they force it on me, I would be forced to take action via the courts. I would prefer to wear a badge, she says, with just my name on it. That is who I am. You don't need to call me she or her. Just call me Esther. That shouldn't confuse, harm or upset anyone. It is my name. To paraphrase the catchphrase from the cult classic TV series, The Prisoner, which I mentioned at the front, I am not a pronoun. I am a free woman. And Esther, yes you are. And I agree with everything you've written on this matter. Forcing people to wear a pronoun, a badge, to display what other people should call them is wrong. Banning it is wrong. I'm all for choice. I'm all for freedom. You must have the freedom to put your pronouns on if you want. I'm not asking for that to be banned. I am saying I should not be forced to do it, and I should not see my lack of pronouns as an offence. My not wearing my pronouns is my choice because I believe I should not do that. I believe that you should take me as who I am, not by any label. I hope you agree, people. Anyway, I shall come up, round this off, and yeah, get out of the video, move on. So quite an intelligent written piece there by Esther. I did like the reference to The Prisoner. An excellent show. I suspect many people who watch this won't have watched The Prisoner. It was a very confusing show. It was very cult. In fact, I believe that some of the episodes were shown out of order and nobody noticed. It was one of those. But what she actually writes is quite correct. You know, she's saying that nobody should be forced to wear a label, and that not wearing one should not be taken as offensive. It's just because people have choices. Now, I'm always one who says that people must have choices. People must opt for those choices. People are a confusing ragtag mix of many, many things, and you can't label an entire person on one tiny aspect. To say someone's simply bad because they don't use a pronoun in their label is wrong. They might be wonderful in other regions, and I don't care. But I won't be told what to do. I won't be forced to do something because someone with a mental illness says I have to. That person is perfectly free to wear their label. But labels in themselves are divisive, dangerous, and ludicrous. You take me holistically. You know, I'm not the aspect of one part of my makeup or my psychology or one line of what I've said. I'm far more complex, and so are you, and so is everybody. 7.5 billion people on this planet. We're all individuals, and we're all made up of thousands of different aspects. We all see the world from a very slightly different viewpoint, and that's a good thing, because otherwise we'd just be mindless drones. It's individualism that's important, and stop labelling people as part of a group and treat people as free individual beings. And labels don't do that, do they? Anyway, I shall round off there. I was a nice piece, I think. Like I say, I agree with Esther, and I do hope that you all agree with Esther. God, that sounds like I agree with Nick, and that was an awful thing, wasn't it? Anyway, let's round it. If you like what I do and say on the channel, please hit the subscription button if you haven't already. Ring the bell for future notifications. Leave a like, leave a comment, and until next time, stay safe, stay well, and goodbye.